So I'm actually the moderator for this session. It's the Green Office. And so we have four panelists. We have Bob, he's from Vista Solutions. He's going to talk about green IT. We have, Jim from Camon Photography, and he's going to talk about waste reduction and cost savings. We have Patrick from the Farnsworth Group, and he's going to talk about green interior finishes. And then last but not least is Rose Watson. She is from the county, and I'm the Rose from the city. So we are like the recycling roses of the community. And if you haven't been out to the garbage garage, I have to say, I know some people, it doesn't sound like an exciting thing. It's an amazing educational opportunity for people of all ages. She gave me some great ideas, and I've been green for, as long as I can remember. But my favorite tip from Rose Watson was potato chip bags. If you turn them inside out, you can put water in them. And I go backcountry skiing a lot with my dog, and I sometimes am remiss about water. And she doesn't know it, but she has saved my lab once or twice. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob.
I'm Bob Fomaski, and the firm's name is Vista Solutions. And actually what I'm going to do is write down my phone number, so if you call me in the next 5 minutes, I probably won't take the call, but you'll have the pleasure of actually hearing it buzz on my belt. Probably you'll hear it over the microphone. 420-4398, and it's Vista Solutions. So then my doodling career started in my second year of the third grade and hasn't really progressed all that much. You're going to need to bear with me on this. So what we want to talk about today is IT and the green initiatives around that. And it really gets down to choices. And what we've discovered is that there's been really a quantum leap that's occurred. Here's my little guy leaping in technology. All right, so who says you can't do stickmen? In that from the choices choices and changes, quantum leaps in technology that have occurred in the last 5 years, we've really begun to see some choices develop in terms of what kind of computing alternatives we might have. And let's just say everything you see on the shelf in Best Buy is really not, and I love Best Buy, great people, but everything that's on the shelf in Best Buy actually isn't all that there is in terms of what you can use for computing in a business. So like our technology, basically there's things that we really want to talk about today, and one of them has to do with the energy. And of course, we all know that computers will use energy. Did I spell that right? E-N-E-R-G-Y. So there's the whole concept of using actually less energy. There's a concept of people. And of course, with energy, you can do, if you're really clever, which I am not, you can do telephone poles to do a graphic for energy. I think you need 3 telephone poles to make a set, don't you? There we go. Then the second topic here is really recycling. And if you think about it right now, there's really a lot of equipment. Life expectancy of computers is somewhere, we'd like to think they're for 3 years. We've had direct experience with ones that have lasted 13 months, blowing up their power supplies, that sort of thing. But unfortunately, what we see is a lot of electronics recycling that we really think is really unnecessary. And I know that bulldozers don't necessarily depict recycling, but it's really kind of the only thing I know how to draw that might actually make the point. So bear with me. Does that look like a bulldozer? How are we doing? Okay. All right. And then some of the fallout, because left here is really the most important part. The right part is really productivity. And we all have to-do lists, right? There's this list, to do, and there's links on it that just grow forever, and a few of them you get checked off. But the concept of computers and productivity, you wouldn't have a computer if you didn't need to be more productive, if it didn't aid you in productivity somehow. And that's a concept that I'm afraid might be a little bit lost these days. With any office of any size, there's always a guy running around, a person running around tinkering with everybody else's computer, the default IT guy. And we're thinking that that isn't really necessary anymore. And then the last thing is just the cost of computers. And well, if you think about the cost of computer, it's really not the box. It's the guy that backs it up, and it's the guy that cleans off the virus that you got last Thursday night, and all that other good stuff. And so basically, really the cost of IT is the geek. Let's see if I can get the glasses on correctly. And then there should be tape in here, but I'm not sure how you actually depict tape. If anybody's with me, I could use some help in that regard. So we talk about this thing in computing, and it has a lot of different names, but I'm going to draw it right here in the middle as a big circle. Yeehaw. Okay. And so it goes by a bunch of different names. What we used to call it in AOL days, we used to call it the WAN, not the WAN, we used to call it the Wide Area Network. Yeah, I guess we used to call it WAN. We also call it the World Wide Web. This is where I had a flash that, did I switch my pen to white? Because if we were still doing green, you'd all be looking at me like, in fact, you're doing it anyway, so it's okay. The World Wide Web. Now we call it, via marketing cleverness, the cloud. And of course, we call it the internet. And what else do we call it? Anybody else got a name for it? Cloud's the one that everybody uses these days. But I wanted you to know that the internet, the cloud, the WAN, and the World Wide Web are frankly all the same thing. So, and then out here on the side, we have technologies that we've used principally for a really long time. And I'm going to draw 4 of them. There's a guy called a FAT client. And that's a FAT PC is what it is. And FAT PCs are the really cool ones with the lights on inside that you see in the store that the gamers usually use. And actually they have a useful place in the industry because the folks that do particularly 3D design, make sure the bolts and the bolt holes all line up before you start bending metal just to see if it's going to work. Folks that do that kind of AutoCAD work really need a FAT machine. Most of us for business don't need that kind of machine. We really just need what we would call I call a mere mortal PC. And mere mortal PCs basically run Microsoft Office. They also probably run QuickBooks. Just to random, not to plug those guys. Sometimes a CRM Act is popular, or there's something like that, but you need to pay your bills, keep track of your customers, and send out an occasional memo, right, or do a PowerPoint presentation. And so this is fundamentally, you know, I've been writing in white the entire time. I hate this. All right, we're going to try this again. FAT. I should check to the screen. And PC. Never get on white again. Okay. Fundamentally, these are current technology that you'll see every day. And actually, the industry has a lot of energy in selling you this technology just because it's good for them. Let's put it that way. It's not a conspiracy theory, but sometimes it's hard to change from that diesel motor to an electric motor. And we've seen the automotive industry go through that. Computer industry is going through a very similar thing. The technology that's actually, I first saw it in 1995 at a Ford Motor Company plant where they had 300 engineers on the floor and you could see the curve of the earth. And what they decided not to do is, really, you could look at the floor and see the curve of the earth. I don't make this stuff up. And so they decided they didn't want to have 5 or 6 IT guys on roller skates running around keeping all the engineers running. It made absolutely no sense to them at all. And so what they did was they beat up HP and Wyse. I think those are the two that are principally making this thing this day, and they made a thing called a thin client. The industry is actually moving on to a thing called a zero client. And zero client I find really intriguing because a thin client really isn't much bigger than a laptop, and it frankly bolts to the back of your monitor. The Zero client actually, the keyboard, monitor, and mouse actually hook directly to the monitor, and so there is no extra box at all. And so think if you're in the business of making boxes, and all of a sudden the monitor business has taken over the computer business, and so like I say, that creates this kind of turmoil we're seeing in the industry. And so this technology actually has some really dramatic benefits. One is that we've discovered that it has a 90% energy savings. And I ran a test the other day. We have a mere mortal one of these in our office, and I ran it for 24 hours. It was allowed to sleep when it wasn't being used, so it pretty much ran for 8 hours and slept for 16 for a 24-hour test. It burned a watt, which is really admirable for that kind of technology. We have one of these down at Everyday Joe's coffee shop, and it's actually in use by students pretty much 16 hours a day from 6 in the morning till 10 at night, and it's not allowed to sleep. And it actually burned 1/4 of a watt. So there was a 75% power savings even when it was forced to be on all the time. So we think that the vendor's claims or manufacturer's claims that a 90% power savings is actually pretty accurate. In fact, it might be even conservative. It might be even much greater than that. So how does this stuff work? And the breakthrough here is really in this piece here, the concepts of the connection to the WAN. All of these are connected to the internet or the cloud, one way or the other. And what happened was this used to cost about $300 a month to get a really fast connection to the internet. The same circuit now is really costs about $40 a month. So there's just been this dramatic decline in the cost of connectivity, and we can take advantage of that. Normally you get out here and you start talking to, I don't know, Google, not to give them any more press than they absolutely need to have, or our folks at MSDN, and everybody's out there surfing one thing or another. And all of these machines behave that way. The additional concept is the whole concept of a community computer center. And which gives these devices down here their personality. So, on my PC at work, I really like to have a picture of my most recent vacation as wallpaper, so I can remember what my vacation was like the week after I got back from my vacation. So what would happen on a thin client is you'd actually get that same picture, but the picture wouldn't be here. The picture would actually be back here, which gives you the opportunity that anywhere you go on the internet, you would have access to your PC. And so what that does is actually helps out with some other things, because now productivity, which is this topic up here, you end up without any viruses. You end up with a computer that simply works. And what we've discovered is we put one on the open internet and out at Everyday Joe's since late December, and it's still up and running. I mean, students have not been able to hack it, and it's basically hosting Microsoft Office for them, which is Word, PowerPoint, the usual suspects. And then the other thing is that this is where it really gets exciting, is the computer guys. The question I have is, what if you invented a trash can that never had to be emptied, and then went to the garbage man and asked him what he thought of it? Or what if you invented a pill for people so they never had to sleep, and went to the hotel business and asked them what they thought about that? And so fundamentally, a lot of what our geek friends do is take care of productivity problems. They recycle your equipment when it wears out in 1 to 3 years, and of course they don't really care about the energy part because somebody else is paying that bill anyway. So I've run my 5 minutes, and I'm gonna basically, my call to action is this a technology that would really make sense for Fort Collins? Because the previous discussion was all about community and what can we do in our community to make this community a better place. And the concept of having a device that really lasts for 6 years, uses 90% of the energy, and actually works, might be something that we could actually roll out here in this community and make for a model for other businesses and other communities around the state, if not the country.
Okay, when I told my wife I was giving this presentation, she said, nobody is going to set their thermostat at 45 degrees and wear those baggy green overalls. So I thought I'd wear this outfit instead so that you could see how great you could look in it. Anyway, I have a large studio because we do multiple sets, a lot of products sometimes, and sometimes I shoot large products. And because of that, it costs a lot of money to heat a big space. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Anyway, in 1996, we changed from film to high-res digital, and now I just ordered my 6th system in this kind of system yesterday, and it's made a huge effect on the amount of waste we've generated and a lot of other things that we'll talk about in a minute. Anyway, in 2000, I started my business in '83 until 2000. Basically, we had 10% growth every year or more until 2000, when we started seeing a decline. Let's go to the next slide, please. I joined ClimateWise in 2008. It's a wonderful program. You're probably all members already. I can't say enough about it. It's a great thing. Go ahead. I had 3 employees in 2002, and with the downturn in 2000, we really couldn't afford to keep them around any longer. So after about 2005, I didn't have any employees except for me. And it was easy for me to look at the cost savings or the energy savings that we produced by doing the things that I'm going to talk about. Let's go to the next slide, please. This is some of my work. What I do basically is I put a programmable thermostat in my studio. My studio is, go to the next one, is 3,200 square feet, and it's about 14 feet high. So that's like 41,000 cubic feet of air to heat, okay? I take up about 9 cubic feet, and it just doesn't make any sense to me to heat 41,600 cubic feet of air to a comfort level that I can live with. So I started wearing, in this image, I was shooting this car. This is a drag car. It happened to have volatile fuel in it. It was really stinky, and my eyes water and everything else. By this time, I didn't have any employees, so it turned out that all I had to do really is dress warmly and open all my doors, and I could live with that thing as long as I was shooting it. And I thought, if I had employees, I couldn't, they wouldn't be able to adapt to this. And you couldn't, as a company owner, you can't really ask an employee to wear a snowmobile suit at their desk. But it's made a big difference for me because I've cut my energy use from whatever it was. There should be a chart in here somewhere. No, that's backward. What I do with a thermostat is I set it to 45 degrees unless I have something scheduled in the studio. I redesigned and reconstructed my studio so that I have very compartmentalized areas. A lot of my work happens in the studio, but a lot of it happens at my desk. And so on the days when I'm doing stuff at my desk, I don't heat the studio. And I try to schedule things in the studio together so that, if I have a job on a Monday, I'll do a few other things on Monday in the studio. If I don't have anything else, then the heat goes back to 45 degrees. And then I'm working in my office, which is 55 degrees in the snowmobile suit. And I've made huge changes, huge savings. In my office areas, we've changed from a bunch of desktop computers to mostly laptop. I use mostly one laptop computer, and this is because I've been in my studio a long time. We could find these figures, but in 2002 I used 2,000 kilowatt hours in 1 month. This is like January to February. This year I used 119. And in fact, next year I'll use 0 because we went to solar. Our solar setup is completely self-sufficient. Let's go to the next slide and I'll show you the gas use. Gas use is more indicative of this 45-degree thermostat thing that I'm talking about. Is, you know, when I had employees, I had to have the place heated, and we probably had more work then. 2000 was our peak production time in terms of how many images and jobs we shot. So there are a lot of different variables here, but still, this is pretty dramatic savings. I'm hoping to go to, say, a solar space heater so I can cut that back further. We've cut way back on our waste. I don't know if we don't have a chart for that. A few years ago, we had twice a week trash pickup of one of those waste wheelers. This is like in the year 2000. Now, I probably put out 32 gallons of trash a month or less. So the waste wheeler is 64 gallons, times 4 is whatever it is, times 12 is whatever that is, as opposed to 32 gallons times 12, which is a lot less. We recycle everything we can, and we've just done everything we can do to reduce waste. And the thing that the reason people somebody asked me to speak is because, you know, the big companies are doing great stuff. I mean, everybody here, the programs that you go to, you know, they're doing really great stuff. And for small companies, you know, we sort of think, well, you know, what can I do? You know, I'm just a little tiny company. And the fact is, a little tiny company can do something if they want to. You know, all I got to do is turn their thermostat down, dress appropriately. A few years ago, my water heater leaked. I mean, my water heater rusted out. And, you know, I looked at how much hot water do I need every month? And I thought, well, I don't really need very much hot water. And so I didn't replace my water heater at all. I got this at a garage sale. I heat, this holds half a gallon. I heat a half a gallon of hot water once a week at the most. Try to do it on Mondays, because when I heat that hot water, usually I wash my dishes from the week before. That takes 1 quart, and then I put the other quart in here, and it lasts for about 4 days. Sometimes in the winter, the water comes out of the sink. It's really, really cold. You want something a little warmer to wash your hands. So I save that quart of water and use it for washing my hands for the rest of the week. But, you know, honestly, I probably don't even make a half a gallon of hot water a week. So under those circumstances, like, well, if you're only using a half a gallon of hot water a week, why would you have a 20-gallon water heater running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you know, 52 weeks a year? So I just got rid of my water heater, and it works fine. I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Well, good morning. My name is Patrick. I'm with the Farnsworth Group. Let's see. I was asked to touch on green interior finishes. And I think what you'll find is my presentation is a bit more broad than that. I've also been asked to touch on green furnishings as well, because I guess the representative from Officescapes was unable to attend today. A great company we've worked with several times, and I would recommend them highly. But you'll see here, I hope to talk about green interior design concepts and an intro to green leases. Now, I don't know if green lease is a term that anyone has ever heard of or familiar with. And again, please, by all means, ask me questions and give me an opportunity to elaborate on any of the concepts that I touch upon in my introduction. And I think Jim did a great job of touching on strategies for a small business when you have pretty much complete control, right, over your space. And not all of us have that luxury. A lot of us are limited by our existing situation. So some of us, most of us, are already in existing office space. We may or may not be in control of that lease term or the details of that lease. Okay, so with that being said, I would also like to reiterate and encourage anybody who's not involved with ClimateWise to get involved. There's no reason not to be involved with ClimateWise. This is a world-class program in this city, and it's completely free. There's tremendous resources available to you through ClimateWise, so please, by all means, go there, get in touch with them. A lot of great resources available to you free of charge, so no excuse not to reach out to these guys. Can you forward? Thanks. So oftentimes green is used very liberally, and I'm really encouraging the industry to move past green. Obviously it encompasses a lot of things very nicely, so you can just say, well, this is green. And that means what exactly? Does that mean energy efficient? Does that mean sustainable? Well, what does sustainable mean? So I think we've had a lot of tremendous resources in our industry throughout the past 10 years come online. And thanks to wonderful communities such as Fort Collins, there's a lot of people that are very well informed and educated and are able to look past the greenwashing, so to speak, and pull out a lot of valuable information. So these are some of the categories, you could say, I'd like to touch on in terms of a green office space. Okay, so it's not necessarily green finishes, but I'd like to focus in on Fort Collins because this is a unique community and we have a lot of tremendous resources available to us here. And one of those is location and transit. So I'll touch on that. Water, indoor air quality is what that stands for. Daylighting, access to views and air, so your ability to look outside, and then your ability to then open the window, right? Which is kind of a novel concept. Sustainable materials, what does that mean? What is a sustainable material? And then, of course, lease is a very powerful tool. Whenever you can utilize a legal contract to enforce your goals, well, that's what you want, right? Because otherwise, you're not going to be able to do that. So part of leases is also something called specification. So I don't know how many of us in this room are going to be looking at or remodeling our existing office space, but if you are, please, by all means, take advantage of that opportunity and utilize resources that are available to you, free resources, so that you can make some good decisions and utilize, again, available resources that are out there for free. So location and transportation, again, a very unique community, a community that emphasizes biking as a culture. Okay, so not just bike riding with your family or biking to work or bike racing or mountain biking. It's a bike culture. So that means that we have found a way to integrate biking into pretty much every aspect of our community. Okay, so one of our primary businesses, we're known throughout the world for beer, for this company, for New Belgium beer. And this is their logo, okay? So it's arguable that there's really no other community in the country, or maybe next to Amsterdam, that has an identifiable brand, right? So Fort Collins has a brand, and part of that is associated with biking. Okay, so there's a lot of resources, again, available to us. Now, there's probably, I would argue, nothing that we could do in this community to be more sustainable or more green than riding our bike to work, okay? So I'll touch upon that a little bit. And then I put this together. Bike culture and rapid and reliable buses boost business and build corporate community. So we have another great resource coming online soon. It's called a BRT, Bus Rapid Transit. Now, I'm from Chicago originally, and so I grew up taking public transportation pretty much every single day. It was just kind of what you did. You get on the bus, and you take the bus to school or the YMCA, You get on the L and take that to the city. You get on the Metra and take that wherever. So there were a number of different options in terms of public transportation. We just don't really have that a part of our culture right now. So it's going to be a challenge, I think, as this bus rapid transit comes online, when it does, if it does. It's going to take our community an effort to understand how to use that, okay? Because that's not something we use here. I don't know what the statistics are for how many people use the bus in town, but I think it's probably very low. 7%. 7%, okay? So pretty small. Okay, so one of the things about riding our bikes to work, okay, which is a wonderful thing and also a challenge, is that I have a colleague in my office, okay, and I think this is not a unique situation. He rides a $1,500 bike to work. $1,500 bike, okay? And that's because, again, we live in a unique community. He, on his way home, he stops at a bike trail, a mountain biking trail, by the river and does like a mountain bike. I'm not a mountain biker, so I don't necessarily understand everything that he does, but he loves living in Fort Collins, and one of the things he loves about living in Fort Collins is on his way home, he can hit a bike trail, okay? So it's not just he's got a $1,500 bike and he's being overpaid. It's that he likes riding his bike. So is he gonna lock his bike up outside? No, he's not. So he brings his bike into the office every day. We have a very small office, okay? So his bike is pretty much the first thing you see when you walk in the door. Okay, so again, when in terms of putting together our office spaces is making sure we have space for our bikes that is not only secure, but indoors, presumably, okay? So there's a lot of resources out there for how, and this is, I think, moving forward, we need to rethink our office space, right? So, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing in Fort Collins is if you walk in and your client sees a bike. I think that's probably a good thing. Again, part of that brand that people are going to see a bike when they walk in the office, that's fine, but it'd be nice if it was kind of put away and had a dedicated space. Okay, so these are just the types of things that I encourage people to think about. Again, bus rapid transit. One of the big things is associated with bus rapid transit is a concept called transit-oriented development. And that's pretty much the phenomenon of Centera. That's transit-oriented development. That's putting development where you have existing transit infrastructure. Okay, so that can be, you can argue the sustainability of that, but you can also take advantage of that concept with bus rapid transit, the Mason Street Corridor. Who else heard of the Mason Street Corridor? Okay, so most of us have. So it's when you're looking, okay, I'm going to be moving out of my office space in 2 years. Okay, so maybe 2 years from now, bus rapid transit's going to be online. Where are the stops along that bus rapid transit? Where are most of my employees commuting from? Can I take advantage of this infrastructure and relocate my business on the Mason Street Corridor? That improves the sustainability of my office by reducing single occupancy vehicle commutes, and then also part of the brand, and then also is nice for your clients. So there's a lot of multiple benefits associated with that. Again, I'd emphasize riding your bike, multiple benefits to that as well. So again, something to think about. Okay, so water efficiency, there's again a lot of wonderful resources available to us that help make these decisions really easy on us. Okay, people have done all the homework for you. So WaterSense is an EPA program, and these are pretty aggressive targets here. So standard toilets use 1.6 gallons per flush. Most of the toilets that we probably use on a daily basis use a lot more than that because toilets are pretty simple technology. They tend to last a long time. Okay, but we have wonderful resources. City of Fort Collins will pay you to replace your toilet. Toilets are not all that expensive. Okay, so, and then they'll also pay you to recycle your toilet. I think you can get a total of $50, right? So let's say a really nice toilet maybe costs you $200. So all of a sudden you have a quarter of that already paid for. That's without installation, of course. And then there's significant savings throughout the life of that that toilet. So that's one of those no-brainers. Okay, so if you're looking at low-hanging fruit, right? So those are the really easy strategies to implement first and foremost. That's one of them. Urinals, a little bit more tricky, but the technology is rapidly improving. Showers, again, if you're going to be having people riding their bikes to work, it's very nice to offer them showers so they can clean up and they're not stinking up the office. Faucets is another good one. Again, the technology is coming to the point where you're not going to really notice a difference between 0.5 and 2 gallons per minute. With aerators and that technology like that, you're not really going to notice a difference as a user. And this is the PRSV is a pre-rinse spray something. It's like what they pre-spray dishes with. Okay. This one is a little more difficult. If anybody specific to the restaurant industry wants to talk to me a little bit more about that, they can. Okay, so indoor air quality material selection. Again, a lot of great resources available out there to us. Who all sort of leadership in energy environmental design. Okay, so LEED has been wonderful in really vetting a lot of these third-party programs that then they vet a lot of the materials and systems that are available to us. So Green Seal certified, Green Guard. This is the South Coast Air Quality Management District. This is a carpet Green Label Plus. This is something I heavily encourage everybody to look at as local resources, not something, especially here in Colorado, we have a lot of forest products available to us, but not something that's necessarily well represented. It's a regional program, okay? So I'm a big proponent of using wood whenever we can, and I think I have a slide that touches upon that specifically, but no added urea formaldehyde, Green Guard. Green Guard addresses furniture and furnishings. So if you're going to be replacing your furniture and furnishings, talk to Officescapes. They know everything there is to know about Green Guard. They know which of their products offerings are Green Guard certified. Even chairs like this, you can get Green Guard certified. Tables, you can get Green Guard certified. So, and what that does is just it verifies that really the off-gassing of that product. So a big one is schools, obviously. And then there's LEED credits. So again, if you're going to be remodeling your space, right into your specifications, you must, even if you're not going for LEED the whole thing, you can focus in on specific credits and say, write that into your specifications, meet these LEED credits, just those credits. And you can do that and require your contractors or your designers to design or specify those products. Okay, so during construction, if you're going to be remodeling a space, you want to focus on indoor air quality. Whenever you're doing construction, you're going to be kicking up a lot of dust, and so there's a lot of resources in how to mitigate that, the pollution associated with that, flushing out a building. Daylighting and access to views. This isn't a great picture, but this is the Fossil Ridge High School here in town. A really great resource. They do tours all the time. The kids do the tours. It's really great. Anybody who hasn't been there, strongly encourage you to go out there and take a look. Really a wonderful way to just improve productivity is to have daylighting whenever you can. And then also operable windows. People want to be able to open their windows. We have a beautiful climate here, something that you should be able to do. It's kind of a nightmare for mechanical engineers, but too bad for them. They can figure it out. Okay, so talk a little bit about wood and life cycle costing. I'm not going to go too deep into this. This is a bit complicated, but pretty much what this is saying is that in terms of life cycle costing, which is taking a look at the energy and sustainability of performance of a particular material over its life cycle, right? So not just, how much recycled content does a material have, right? But what are the environmental impacts over the life of that product, and what does it cost in terms of energy costs and sustainability costs, embodied energy, to replace that material. And so as our sustainability conversation incorporates more carbon, right? So more carbon sequestration, whatever your political affiliation is, we want less carbon, okay? We want less carbon in our atmosphere. So whenever we can lock that up in wood, wood is a carbon, it locks up carbon for the life of that, okay? So if you burn that wood or if it decomposes, it releases the carbon. If you don't, it locks up that carbon. So steel and concrete have pretty high environmental costs associated with them. So there's a large movement right now with just trying to educate and say, well, with sustainably managed forest, wood is a far superior environmental product, okay? So looking at rapidly renewable, I could talk more about that if you're interested. Okay, so I think this might be my last slide. Green leases, again, really encourage you to focus in on this. This is one of the best places that you can really gain the most benefit. Is most of us have a lease, most of us have office space, and associated with that we have leases, okay? Or we own buildings and we have tenants and we have leases associated with that. So as more and more of us are incorporating some of these sustainability goals into our office spaces, it becomes important. Why do all of this if the guy next door is completely ignoring, has a completely different objective or different goal, or maybe just isn't as educated, and they may be adding pollutants to the air that are impacting indoor air quality that you've done so much to mitigate in your office. So it's kind of sharing the benefits. So legalize, that says, okay, make it legal. Make it a part of your lease, all right? If you want recycling to be available to you, make that part of your lease, all right? Make sure that they are legally obligated to provide that. Incentivize. So make it a part of your lease is if, let's say, you want your building to be lead O&M, which is operations and management. I want my building to be lead O&M. If you do that, I will commit to stay in this building for 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. Share the benefits. Okay, so if there's energy savings associated with whatever that you've done in that building, share some of those benefits. I know our building, we share the utility costs. So if we put in CFL bulbs, all right, and to reduce the energy consumption of our particular office, well, the guys below us are going to benefit from that. So that can kind of go both ways. So you just need to make sure everyone's working together. Otherwise, someone else, through their energy consumption, may not be in line with your effort. So, and then use your leverage. You know, as a tenant, you have a lot of leverage. Your landlord wants you to stay there. They want you to be happy. So utilize that leverage, especially if you have multiple offices throughout the country or throughout town. Utilize that leverage. So this is a nice little flow chart to talk about. What is your lease portfolio? Pretty much meaning, what does your lease look like? How many leases do you have? How many offices do you have? And then establish some green criteria. So let's say we want to recycle. We want to make sure we purchase recycled content of all our office products. Great resources are some of the larger office product supply companies. Office Depot, for example, they have a lot of resources on their website that make it really easy for you to purchase recycled content. And so you can just see, site selection, a big one. So if you're going to be moving, what's important to us? Where do we want to be? Do we want to be near transportation infrastructure? And then negotiate all of that criteria. Whether you're a landlord or a tenant, it goes both ways. So, and then this is a big one, measure and monitor, okay? Someone else talked about that in the previous session. If you can't monitor it or measure it, it's really hard to make the argument for it and then to know how successful you've been. So there's a lot there. I know I left probably a lot out. I think that might be my last slide. Oh, okay, this is the last one. Reduce, reuse, recycle. This is like the most basic thing, and it's in that order, right? That's pretty critical. It's reduce your usage, okay? Reduce your office space size if you can. Reuse whatever you can, reuse furniture whenever you can. And then lastly, recycle, and I would add to that renewable. Okay, renewables are that's with renewable energy and then also renewable materials. Okay, so there's a lot of materials out there. Bamboo is an example, not a great example because you can't grow a lot of bamboo in North America, but there's a lot of regionally available products out there that are renewable. Again, wood is an example of one of those. We have a lot of wood available to us, a lot of beetle kill. Let's figure out a way to use that in place of some other not so sustainable materials. So that's a lot of information. Let me know if you have any questions.
Well, that was a nice segue. The reduce, reuse, recycle, and you bet, reduce is the first one. And we do talk about a lot of different R's and rethink and repurpose and all those kinds of things. What I'm going to talk about, though, is what we're doing in Larimer County to become more energy efficient. Our vision statement for the county is pretty important to all of us, and we are challenged to think about that when we go about our daily workday and those kinds of things that we do as employees. The first one's being a good steward of public resources, and that means not wasting resources. That means all of the little things that you can do as well as the big things that you can do to save the taxpayers' money. You know, everyone says, hey, I pay taxes for that, and I should have a say in it, right? Would you agree with that? Okay, and so we have to be accountable for that. So we have to be good stewards. And so that goes into buildings, equipment, all kinds of things. We recently hired an energy conservation specialist, and that was through a block grant. And he's just done an incredible job of looking at our energy usage. One of the things that he found is that in 2010, we used enough electricity in the county buildings alone to power 329 homes. Now, that's not a really good figure. So he's been really getting into power it down, and we've been having all kinds of challenges, employee challenges, and that sort of thing. So we're trying to be customer driven. Now, that's not something as a resident that you might even think about. Well, oh my gosh, you know, $170,000 for electricity to power county buildings. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of taxpayer money. So by having Stacy on board, he's made some significant inroads in having people to stop and think about that. And one of the things has been our solar panels. There's some solar panels on top of the courthouse building. We call it the courthouse building, but it's kind of the admin building on Oak Street. And also, I work out at the landfill and the solid waste department out there. We have solar panels that power 2 of our buildings, and we've actually had times when the meter has run backwards. We've actually been able to send power back, so that's pretty exciting to have that. Again, the public wants us to have programs and services that benefit them, right? So how do we go about doing that? Well, we have to be responsive. We have to listen to our constituents. We have to make sure that we are doing things the most efficient way. And some of the things that have happened also is reconfiguration of offices and buildings. The Midpoint campus, those buildings out there, not very energy efficient at all. If you ever talked with anyone who worked in human resources, they're so glad to be in the Oak Street offices now because the wind doesn't come in their windows and it's a much nicer environment for them. All of this is a cultural shift, and you all have addressed that. Everyone has addressed that. And I thought I was radical. Oh my gosh. I thought I was doing pretty good keeping my thermostat at 62, but you know, again, but it's a cultural shift. You know, we're not in an age of plenty where we can just not think about those things, you know, not only energy cost, but what it takes to power our homes and our businesses and to run everything that we need to run, you know, again, transportation, that sort of thing. So a lot of what Stacy's doing with this energy conservation specialist position is working with our Green Practices Committee that's been around since 2006. And we were just kind of an informal committee that met and came up with some ideas and that sort of thing. But now we've got some real punch, some real power that, again, working with the Power It Down program, also with going in and analyzing what different departments use in terms of water, electricity, and that sort of thing, and how many computers are left on overnight and over weekends. It's phenomenal. And so, again, that cultural shift of, you know, when I left my cubicle this morning, I turned my computer off. There was, no one else was going to use it, so turn the thing off. Really simple things, simple and practical. We don't have to be, pie in the sky necessarily and go, oh, this is really great. Little things. I was looking at is little wastebasket still there?
Store your trash.
Yeah. That's the size of wastebasket I have in my cubicle, and most weeks I don't even fill it up. And one of the other things, again, talk about being radical. Plastic bags and I are not in the best of company, but all of our wastebaskets are lined. So what I do on Friday is take my little bit of trash and take it to the big trash can and dump it in there, and then that way they're not replacing the plastic bags. Now, it sounds kind of nitpicky, but if every one of us saved one plastic bag a week, what a difference that would really make. So again, empowering people to take responsibility. I tell folks, and I oversee the Garbage Garage Education Center, and we do a lot of tours. In fact, we had, between our drop-ins and our tours and our outreach, we had contact with over 6,000 people last year to spread our 3 R's message and, to really be able to talk about these issues. And as educators, our role is not to advocate, but to educate. So empowering people to take responsibility to do those kinds of things and talking with them. There was a teacher in Loveland who wrote a book, What If Everybody Did That? And we've probably all heard that from mom or dad at least once in our lives. So what if everybody did that? Well, that's really the key to it. What if everybody did that? What if everybody turned their computer off? What if everybody turned their lights off when they left their office? What if everybody, when you had a meeting and there was some nice light coming in the window, shut the overhead lights down? Could we make a difference? You bet. We could make a really big difference. Okay. And she's saying, moving on. Again, one of the big things, shredding paper. It costs the county a phenomenal amount every year to shred paper and to dispose of it. And so now we have a program going on. It's like, don't shred it unless it's, totally confidential. It's not, it's fun to shred paper, but, again, incentives, information, our Green Practices Committee, we have recycling coordinators in every single department, and I kind of spearhead that program. And building partnerships, City of Fort Collins, we have a tremendous partnership with the city, with transport, climate-wise, carpooling, van pooling, that sort of thing. Of course, where I work at the landfill, I don't know that it would be really, really safe for me to ride my bike with a cart behind it to drag all the stuff around that I do, but I do try to cut down my trips also. And again, a fulfilling and enjoyable place to work. If we can all get on the ball with these kinds of things and start feeling better about our efforts, then it is going to be an even more enjoyable place to work. The Commissioners' Luncheon last year was as close to zero waste as we could possibly make it, which was awesome. So, my time up? Okay, again, thank you, but please know that your tax dollars are being watched in the county, and we're doing everything we can to cut those costs through energy savings.